Everyone has big or little secrets that they don't want to get out. Some secrets shed light on why important decisions were made, how mistakes were made or avoided, or are just a fun little insight into the workings of a favorite franchise. Let's take a look at a few that Marvel has let slip. These days, it's Robert Downey Jr.'s world, and we all just live in it. He's so iconic, he has become his own acronym, RDJ. While we're all coming to terms with a world that doesn't have RDJ's Tony Stark or Iron Man in it, it's hard to imagine anyone else filling that iconic role. But all the way back in 2008, when the shared universe was but a twinkle in Kevin Feige's eye, it was easy for the studios to imagine basically anyone else but RDJ in the role of Tony Stark. Like the character that he helped move from Marvel's B-list of heroes they couldn't sell to the A-list, RDJ has a turbulent history. While he's been nominated for 2 Oscars, he's also had troubles with reliability, getting fired from some other prestigious projects. But Favreau felt that made him perfect to play the troubled genius. Turns out that he was right. Casting issues weren't the only problem that threatened the creation of the MCU before it even started. To launch their ambitious project, they had secured distribution, their cast, and their release date. They needed to start shooting. The only problem? There wasn't a script. The studio had assumed that the script would come together by the time shooting began, but it didn't. The writers were writing the movie as the production went on. And when production got ahead of them, Favreau and Downey would improvise the scenes out of their trailer until they figured it out, and then would rush to shoot it with the waiting crew. It was a process that freaked out the traditionally laid-back but still hardworking Jeff Bridges, who played the film's main villain, Obadiah Stane, the Ironmonger. The veteran actor likes to be prepared. In an interview with In Connection, Bridges said he decided to approach it like a $200 million student film. Some of Marvel's biggest stars have taken a little bit extra to remember their time traipsing through the MCU. Like Chris Hemsworth taking home not 1, but 5 of them. Mjolnirs, that is. He said that he even keeps one in the bathroom. Hemsworth has said that since owning up to his hammer-pilfering ways, the crew has been more diligent in keeping him from taking more. But Hemsworth is probably up for the challenge. Prior to the creation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Comics was forced to go hat in hand, selling off the movie rights to its most popular characters just to keep the lights on. But then one Tony Stark privatized world peace, and Nick Fury introduced the Avengers Initiative, and everything changed, including who owned Marvel. What didn't change, however, was that those characters, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four, all belonged to other studios. When the time came to film the MCU's adaptation of the popular storyline Civil War, Marvel and Feige had a wish. That was to bring Spider-Man to the MCU and the key role he had in the comic book storyline. Just in case it didn't happen, the movie planned for Black Panther in that third role. When it did happen, it threatened to squeeze T'Challa out. Instead, Spider-Man got a cameo, and Black Panther's role remained integral. After hearing how the first Iron Man came together, it might not be that big a surprise that an actor had a hand in writing their own character. It might even be reasonable, after the success of that first Iron Man movie, that the studio would be more open to that suggestion. When it came time to film the MCU's Incredible Hulk movie, they had promised Edward Norton some creative freedom in the role, which he used to rewrite the character's dialogue. It wasn't enough to get the Writers Guild to give him a writer's credit, however, though he did ask. Most of the scenes that Norton had added ended up on the editing room floor. He later went on record attacking the movie's bad script. With all that animosity, it's not hard to imagine why Marvel Studios decided to replace Norton with Mark Ruffalo. Though why they did it depends on who you ask and when. One of those things that ended up on the editing room floor still became a vital part of the lore of the ever-loving Hulk over the course of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Hulk is a creature of extremes. For every puny god moment or temper tantrum about having to take stairs, there's moments of brooding and deep regret about the destructive nature of the beast inside. Early on in the MCU, the weight of the beast inside was a heavy burden for the Good Doctor for good reason. In 2 out of the 2 movies, the Hulk turned on his teammates before finally fighting on their side. To underline how heavy it was to carry the Hulk, Banner tells Natasha he tried to kill himself to get rid of the other guy, only to have him spit the bullet out. Pretty dark, but not as dark as actually showing it, which is a scene cut from the Incredible Hulk movie. One of the runaway stars of the Captain Marvel movie was the adorable and deadly Flerken Goose. To the people of Earth, it looked like a normal everyday ginger kitty, but people in the know knew it to be one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. If you're a knick-knack on a shelf, you probably don't see a difference between the two. The furkin known as Goose became a key factor in Carol Danvers and Nick Fury's efforts to save the Earth from the Kree-Skrull War. But there was a catch that wasn't giant tentacles. It turns out that actor Brie Larson was super allergic to her little furry co-star. She joked to Entertainment Weekly it became this joke because the crew would watch me all day doing crazy stunts. But then the cat showed up on set and I was like, we need to have a plan. We need to have a conversation. Jon Favreau wasn't the only one to sing the praises of Robert Downey Jr. to the studios in order to get him the role as Tony Stark. Before there was an RDJ as Tony Stark, the studio had cast the role of Tony Stark's friend and military liaison, James Rhodey Rhodes, with what it felt was a much safer bet. No, not Don Cheadle. Well, not yet anyway. The first Rhodey Rhodes was played by the prolific actor Terrance Howard. Unfortunately, the deal wasn't binding, and when the second movie came around, the studio had decided Rhodes wasn't as vital. According to Howard, his pay was cut and RDJ wouldn't return his call, so Howard walked away and Don Cheadle got to wear the War Machine armor. As popular as Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr. have been in the MCU, the Iron Man sequels have had their struggles. When Iron Man 3 promised to feature one of the most iconic Iron Man villains, fans got excited. But thanks to a suggestion during the writing, the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 became an out-of-work actor named Trevor Slattery. But this wasn't the only time that the Mandarin was pulled out from beneath us. In the early drafts of the first Iron Man script, the same one that wasn't done before production started, the Mandarin featured prominently. This would have been a younger Mandarin who had dealings with Stark Industries. But instead, that screen time was given to develop Stain, and only the Mandarin's organization, the Ten Rings, remained. Captain America isn't just mighty shield throwing and making those who oppose his shield yield. Cap is also an ideal. He's a man who went into the ice as a patriotic symbol of World War II propaganda about doing the right thing and standing up for the little guy. Then he came out in a world of complexities where it was clear that we don't always live up to those ideals. Or how we've thought about them hasn't always been ideal. But he's Captain America. He's the beacon. That's a heavy weight to carry. For Chris Evans, he wasn't even sure he wanted that steady job, much less the pressure of being Captain America. By working movie to movie, he could walk away at any time. With a 6-picture stretching to 7-picture deal, it was a lot to take in. So he sought outside help by going to therapy to come to terms with being the MCU's moral center. One of the things that Marvel has gotten really good at is controlling leaks. While they still happen, for the most part, Marvel has been pretty good at keeping important information under wraps. However, making movies is a whole production, and you can't keep everything secret. Early on, they tried when they sued a website that had published a photo taken by freelance photographer Ronnie Adams. But Adams had taken the photo legally, and the suit was dropped. Marvel even gave the website access and interviews for the promotion of Iron Man as an apology for overreacting, which should have been the end of it. But Marvel used the photo in the movie as part of a newspaper article about Iron Man without asking Adams, resulting in his own lawsuit. Sometimes both heroes and villains go through a lot of changes making their way from page to screen. For every Iron Man suit of armor that seems ripped from the comics, a villain like Whiplash loses his stylish ponytail. Early on in the MCU, directors and actors alike were given a lot of creative freedom to help define the characters they were bringing to life. So if you were wondering what was up with that bird that Whiplash had, well, that was actor Mickey Rourke's idea. And it wasn't his only one. Rourke also fought for the teeth and tattoos that made up the rest of Whiplash's cinematic look. It was quite a lot, but compared to the purple and yellow outfit, it was a bit reserved. There was one element that made it to production, but not to the screen, was that he was a Loki fan. One of the tats was of Loki, but the decision was made in post to get rid of it. The division of rights that happened before Marvel Studios became a thing can get pretty complicated. Well, it was complicated until Disney won the game of Hungry Hungry Hippos by devouring both Marvel and Fox and bringing most of the characters back together. But prior to that, the rights to Marvel's X-Men Mutant Universe belonged to Fox, while Marvel retained the rights to the Avengers. That seems cut and dry, except what happens when mutants are an integral part of the Avengers? That's the case with the Maximoff twins, Wanda and Pietro. They are the offspring of Magneto himself. Mutants. But they're both also long-standing members of the Avengers. So, Avengers. Eventually, it was decided that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver belonged to both companies, and both companies made their own Quicksilvers. Marvel had big plans for their smart-mouth speedster, but director Joss Whedon had plans of his own, and that was killing Quicksilver off before his first movie was even over. Anyone can register a domain name, so if somebody goes and registers the name bigbusiness.com before Big Business does, they now have to buy bigbusiness.com from that guy. On the eve of Avengers Infinity War, Twitter user @AManInAChair made a guess and registered AvengersEndgame.com and AvengersEndgameMovie.com. When his guess played out, he had both URLs direct to the website for Deadpool. Deadpool would be proud. While the Marvel Cinematic Universe gave a lot of creative freedom to its early creators, as the MCU started to take shape, that freedom started to have to give way to the studio aesthetic, and these stories had to become part of the overarching franchise. This meant that directors used to a lot more autonomy had a whole lot less of it. Very publicly, we saw that relationship deteriorate with Joss Whedon, who went from hero of the franchise to leaving in frustration after only his second movie. The one who felt that change the hardest never actually got a chance to make his first, and that's Edgar Wright and his vision for AntMan. Wright had come to Marvel looking to translate that character to the big screen a full 2 years before Iron Man launched the MCU. But by the time Wright and his AntMan were set to join the MCU, there were more rules in place. Wright had said that he wanted to make a Marvel movie, but Marvel wasn't as interested in making an Edgar Wright movie. Not all the struggles behind the scenes at the MCU have been between actors and directors against the studio. There have been some struggles at the top of the company as well. Producer Kevin Feige has become synonymous with the MCU. There's another name that's had a hand in shaping things as well, and that name is Ike Perlmutter. Perlmutter was a board member and eventual chair of Marvel dating back to 1993. After Marvel filed for bankruptcy in '96, Perlmutter came out on top as the head of the company, retaining control even after Disney bought Marvel. This meant that studio head Kevin Feige had to report to Perlmutter before Disney. It was a relationship that frustrated Feige and almost forced him out before Bob Iger at Disney stepped in and allowed Feige to report directly to Disney. The entertainment division, however, still reports to Perlmutter. Just think, as recent as 2012, Thanos' short appearance at the end credits of Avengers sent so many people to the internet to look up who this ridged chin villain might be. It turns out that the creator of Thanos has had a very Thanos-like relationship with Marvel Comics. After introducing Thanos in the pages of the Invincible Iron Man number 55, the creator has had an on-again, off-again relationship with the publisher that ended for good shortly before his favorite creation was set to take on the entire MCU. His disputes have varied from creative control to money, even both praising and criticizing his character's big screen adaptation. Schedules can be a tricky thing. Just trying to get more than 4 adults together to hang out can take 6 attempts. And 4 reschedulings, and even then Kelly might be late, and Mike has to leave early to pick up his kids. Of course, that's Mike's excuse for everything now. Anyway, once an actor is done with one film, if they're lucky or in demand, they move on to the next. The only problem is that once the last cut is called during principal photography, sometimes there is more to do. We all know the prosthetic chin Captain America wore during the shawarma scene in Avengers, but there are some things chins just won't fix. To shoot the scenes of Jane Foster and Thor kissing at the end of Thor: The Dark World, Natalie Portman wasn't available. There was someone who had a lot of practice kissing Chris Hemsworth available though, and that was his wife. For a while in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Hulk's vocabulary was only better than plant-based Guardian of the Galaxy Groot, restricted to calling gods puny or imploring agents to leave him alone. After all, we wouldn't like him when he's angry. For the most part, the Hulk did a lot of yelling and smashing. But on the battle planet Sakaar and in the aftermath of Avengers that we got to see in Endgame, it turns out the Hulk has a lot of things to say. This leaves the issue of what exactly does the Hulk sound like? Well, the answer turned out to be the Tale of Two Hulks, as the voice was a combination of Mark Ruffalo and TV's original Hulk, Lou Ferrigno. Sound editor Christopher Boyes also used a little of his own voice and a pair from New Zealand to come up with the bass for the Hulk's big sound. It took 2 Ant-Man movies before the winsome Wasp made her official appearance on the big screen outside of a flashback. That's a long road for someone who was not only a founding member of the Avengers, but also the one who named the group in the first place. She could have shown up as early as the first Avengers movie had things gone just a little differently though. In the early stages of the planning for Avengers, there was some concern that Scarlett Johansson wouldn't be available for the whole shoot. And so a draft of the screenplay included the Wasp, even getting as far as some concept art that included the tiny flying hero. Whedon also considered adding a second villain, concerned that a British actor wouldn't be enough to carry the film. Of course, underestimating Loki is a common mistake. In the end, the Wasp wasn't there for the formation of the team she named, and would have to wait for the Endgame finale to fight as an Avenger. And those are some of the secrets that Marvel may not have wanted you to know. What secrets did we miss? Or what's your favorite behind-the-scenes secret? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're there, why not hit that subscribe button for the latest videos in your inbox? And hey, thanks for watching.